Hello, Martin. Welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
Well, thank you, Megan. How are you doing?
I'm good. So happy to have you here. We're going to talk today about how to keep going as a blogger. Everything is, I don't want to say everything. Things feel a little bit tough, like we're maybe swimming upstream a little bit sometimes. So we're going to talk about how to make things a little bit easier for all of us. Before we get to that, though, what would you say is the reason people are going to press play on this episode? What is the pain point that we're solving for people today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of people out there who are probably in a similar situation to myself, in that you're trying to build and grow a blog. Well, you're really up against it with everything else that's happening. So the likes of AI, you've got time pressures, you might have a full-time job, which is my situation. So you've only got limited time to be able to do your blog. And I just felt that some of the things that I do might be useful to other people. So I wanted to share those with them, really.
Yeah, I think this is great and so relevant. And I think this is one that people will definitely tune into. So thank you for showing up for us today, Martin.
No problem.
Can you tell us a little bit about your blog? So you're the blogger at Dad What Cooks, correct?
I am, yes. Bad grammar, I know, but that's how it is. Just from where I am in the UK, so it's just a dad what cooks.
Yeah.
I'm a dad that cooks. So my blog's been going from about 2019, and it's really it really started off as a slow cooker blog, and really a place to put my recipes and barbecue stuff, which is what I like to do as well. Just somewhere to kind of format them. I'm a tech guy at heart, and my day job is an IT tech guy.
Okay.
So the two worlds of tech and food collided and ended up with a blog that kind of just started and kept going, really. It's not a full-time job for me. It is a hobby. I appreciate some people in this world are full-time bloggers, and probably a lot of what I said today isn't going to be relevant to them because they still have time pressures. But I think maybe it is relevant. I don't know. But yeah, for me, it's really, about making the most of the time that I've got available to blog with, and hopefully it'll be of use.
Yeah. No, I think that's great because I do know so many bloggers who have all the time in the world and they don't get anything done. So I think if we can also talk about just how to maybe do self-imposed, time constraints a little bit so that you actually get your work done, we can get into that. So you have a full-time job. So you work, I'm assuming, somewhere around 40 hours outside of blogging, right?
That's right. Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. So I am lucky in that I've got some of it is remote and some of it is in the office. But when I am in the office, I'm lucky enough, I suppose, to be on a train. I'm not driving, so I can get the train in.
Yeah.
And that gives me an hour of time on the train where I could read a book. I could, I do my notes app on my phone is, it's always open with just ideas pinging around my head. So anything that pops in gets written down in the notes app, and really just to capture those various thoughts along the way, whether that be sort of ideas for a newsletter or I must write about this post, or this popped in my head last night, I can't forget about it. So I think you can find a lot about a person in the notes app if you ever read other people's.
That's funny. I wonder what people would think about me. I write some weird things in there.
And it's the most random thoughts as well. That's the other thing that go in there, just anything that pops in. It's just a good place to store it centrally.
That is a good idea. So how often do you refer back to your note? Do you look at it every day?
Probably not every day, no. But when I'm kind of at a point where I think, I've got a bit of time to do something, or I might say, I can use half an hour this lunchtime, or I've got a bit of free time in the evening, I'll kind of have a running list in there of things I want to do and things I want to be seeing. So having that small window of time really forces you to prioritize and adjust and what actually matters, make the priority of that. I think distraction from other things is really easy, especially when you're on a phone. You've got all your apps and messages and things pinging left, right, and center. So I think it's important to have a list of something that you at least want to achieve. Now, whether that be in the day, in the week, in the month, even in the year, the quarter, whatever, there's lots of options. But having something that's running, knowing where your end goal is, I suppose, as to what you want to get to, is quite a key one. Having said that, the biggest distraction is your phone. And if you don't have your phone, or if you don't need your phone, then move it out of the room. So when you are writing, and if you're on a computer and you're writing a blog post or something, make a quick note of the things you want to make a note of, and then move your phone somewhere else. I think distraction is so easy. I'm guilty of it all the time. And what I found is sort of, if you just say, right, 2 minutes, so you give your brain 2 minutes to just start focusing on the task, and it will go beyond 2 minutes, but it's just getting that initial hands on the keyboard and start typing type thing. Quite a few of these tips. There's a book called Indistractible by Nir El. Sorry, I'm not sure how you pronounce the surname. Eyal. Anyway, and his book is brilliant because it gives you so many tips and things like that to sort of work out and know how to not be distracted.
I have not heard of that. I'm so excited though. I love new book recommendations. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Ironically, I found that by being distracted. So it's one of those, isn't it?
You found it during your distraction time, and it helps you to not be distracted. I love it. So you have some tips, clearly, because you have to, right? You have limited time.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think planning around the time you've got, work with the time that you have, not the time you wish you had. You might want to have 5 hours in a day, but you might only have half an hour before you log on for work. So use that wisely, refer back to your notes. But also, I think, decide what you're doing, find what works, because it's all well and good thinking, I've got to do a newsletter, I've got to do a blog post, I've got to do some Pinterest pins or something like that. For me, I focus more on the blog and the content and getting that right, because while it's nice to be able to do 15 pins a day, it's just not viable for me anyway. It's just something that I can't do. My blog doesn't make hardly any money at all anyway, so I can't outsource it. It is a hobby, like I say, but when you do get to a point where you can start getting other people to do the things that you either don't have the time to do or can't do, then that's a good point to do that. But when you're doing everything yourself and you are sort of the one-man band, I think it's important to prioritize it as best you can. And I think, yes, so like email newsletters, social media, I really focus on, like I say, my blog and my Instagram piece. They're kind of the two big bits that I do. And I'm really trying in 2026 just to get at least one newsletter out per month to my readers. It's only a couple of hundred people, but I think the consistency is something that is key on that.
Yeah. So find the things you want to be consistent with and prioritize them and make them happen, is kind of in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I think so. I think only sort of focus on what's working for you as well. And if something is working, double down on it, because, it's going to help in the long run, and the other stuff should follow. But, I've got a TikTok, I've got Threads. Use the tools where you can. So with Instagram, it does have the option to post to Threads as well. Well, if you're doing a post on Insta, it will do that. And if you get all that configured, at least try and use the automation as best you can, because that's the helping hand you might need.
Yeah. So for your actual blog content, because I assume you keep consistency up with that, how do you carve out time for that, and how much do you create? Do you feel like you're stretched, or is it pretty easy?
At the minute, I've been really focusing on getting what's on there right and up to date and as relevant as possible, because I think there's not loads of content on there. There's probably about 130, 140 posts and recipes, which is a decent amount, but there's a lot of stuff that really needs to be kind of tweaked and formatted better, early posts especially.
Sure.
So I took the opportunity at Christmas time to go through and build a little WordPress plugin that was essentially, I just got Claude to do it. So I got on the old AI and asked Claude to make me a plugin that will prioritize which posts I need to update.
Oh gosh.
Because previously it was a case of, exporting it from your database and then sorting in an Excel spreadsheet and, finding the dates, the oldest ones, and updating. This little plugin now does a few extra bits of that. So it's quite neat. And I've made that available for free as well if anybody else wants to use it. So I'll share the link at the end.
I'm sure many people would.
I hope so. But yeah, that's quite useful, because that will give you these posts haven't been updated in X amount of days, months, weeks, and it will just, traffic light warn you which one needs to be done. So I've put that on my site, and I've been using that to refer back to my earlier posts. And then it's really, getting all the SEO keywords right and making sure that everything is as targeted, I suppose, as and relevant for the post, but as helpful as possible, because that's the key thing these days, isn't it? It's got to be useful and helpful content. We've all been burned by the algorithm updates, and I think there's a lot of people have been hit by that and lost a lot of traffic. Ironically, I've seen mine kind of grow quite nicely.
That's great.
The ones that have, I know, and I was as surprised as anybody really. But
awesome.
I was really pleased to see, to get some traction on it. Still not loads, and still never sort of top 3 results, but it's at least first page, which I'll take.
Absolutely, it's going up.
Think,
that's
it's going the right way. That's the key. Yeah.
Yep. So you primarily focus on this strategy where you kind of figure out what needs to be tweaked and then finding new content to make. And how do you make time for that with your full-time job? Is it like once you sit down, are you ready to hit the ground running, I assume?
Yeah, so essentially goes back to using the phone again, really. So my pictures, if I'm making a meal or I'm making some bread or some barbecue recipe, I'll try and make the conscious effort to photograph it as I'm doing it, because while I might not be writing the post that day or that week, if it's on my phone and I've got the sequence of pictures, it's then there as a reference point to be able to sort of grab them and build that post out accordingly. The actual, when I'm making a recipe post, it will be in a pretty typical format, in that there'll be an introduction, a step-by-step process, the usual kind of substitution sides to pair it with, the recipe card itself. So that actual process, because it's mostly templated now anyway, it's a fairly quick process for me to do. And I will engage with AI as well, and I won't get AI to write it for me, but I'll draft the post and then I'll kind of put it into AI and say, give me some content gaps on that, what am I missing, based on X keyword, where can I improve things, and just get, don't take it as gospel, but take it as another pair of eyes reading over the post and see if it is going to be of any use for you. I think people have made the mistake in just putting everything in and dumping the AI output into the recipe post or the blog post in general. And I think that's obviously, it doesn't look natural. You can tell one that's been written by AI, and it's only getting, I don't know if it will get better or worse. I think the content being created will get better, but the obviously the tools that detect it as well will get better. So I really do think there's still something in that human element of writing.
Absolutely. I think that's more important than ever. So you use AI just to kind of, generate some ideas and help you keep things moving.
Yeah. So in ChatGPT, I think you can use quite a few various GPT types. So obviously you can almost set up a team. So you'll have an SEO team, like a GPT that's using my language and my terms and the way I work, but act as a SEO expert and and that kind of thing, which that's that one. And then you get a marketing one or a social content one, and you can create these teams. Obviously you need a kind of the pro level plan to be able to do this. So it does cost a little bit of money, but I think that's worthwhile at this level that I'm at anyway, because I'm not having to outsource to other people who have that expertise. Now it's never going to be perfect, but I think it's a start. And if you've got a start, at least it's the first foot on the ladder.
Yeah. And do you think this is a way to embrace the changes with AI? Because I know AI is one of the things that people are resisting because it is taking traffic from some blogs. So is this a good way to kind of, just embrace the chaos a little bit, like use the good things that are going to help your business?
I mean, it's there. I think if you don't use it, you're going to get left behind at some point. Now, I don't know when that will be, and I don't even know if that will be the case. Is there going to be a bubble that will burst? There's so many different arguments and thoughts on the whole concept. But the bottom line is, if you look at where we are now compared to where we were last year, that is a massive difference already, isn't it? And I think it's only going to change again. So, while it's difficult to stay ahead of the curve, at least try and stay on track with it as best you can. And I think just utilizing the elements of what it does offer, whether you decide to use them on your site as well, that's essentially the human decision. You don't have to put it on. So if what it spits out or what it's suggesting to you doesn't feel right, trust your gut. And it's really important that you do that, because if you don't, then you're not being true, really, and what you're actually putting out there isn't yours, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And like you said, you can use it more as a coach, like be my SEO expert, tell me how to navigate this, or be my marketing coach and tell me how to market whatever. So it's not like you necessarily need to copy and paste or worry about writing blog posts. You can also use it as more of a business strategy.
Absolutely.
Strategist. Yeah.
I think from that point of view, earlier in the year, I wanted to get myself a bit of a plan together for what I would do in 2026 and where do I focus, because as I said, I've got 100 or so blog posts on there. Which ones are doing okay, which aren't. Now, my blog is barbecue, bread, and a bit of slow cooker air fryer type meal. That's kind of I was trying to niche it down, but it's just too random that I can't do one specific niche. So I kind of cover it as best I can. And then again, I go back to, well, I'll just do what I enjoy doing. And, I'm not in it to make money. I'm in it just for somewhere to keep my recipes and that, but try and keep them as organized as possible so they're at least useful for people. But what I wanted to do was to find out if there was anywhere that I could kind of focus my efforts and make it a bit more structured for this year. And one suggestion which I'd seen in a video somewhere was about using your AI tool to essentially generate you a business strategy by taking the output of your Google Search Console and Google Analytics queries and export the CSV of your stats from the previous year or two, or however much you've got, and input that and say, based on that, how can I grow? And I must have come out with a 10-page document saying, this area is really good. Ironically, the air fryer one was the part that was doing the best. It wasn't really what I wanted. I wanted to focus on the bread and the barbecue, but the air fryer stuff was kind of, that's doing really well. You should do more of that. And I was like, well, that's nice. I don't want to do that. So, it came up with a plan though in Q1, try and do this in, if you've only got so many weeks. And then I went back to it and I said, well, I've only got 5 to 7 hours a week to do this. So then it rejigs it and it says, right, well, on week 1, try and do this. Week 2, try and, and you get a breakdown, and it's a manageable breakdown, which is quite nice to see as well. So that's another good sort of way of using it, which works.
Yeah, and like we kind of talked about earlier, you have a full-time job, so you have to make your time valuable. You have to make it work. But this is a way for people who maybe this is their full-time job and they're having a hard time finding the time. This is a way for you to sit down and make things happen. Have a conversation with ChatGPT about, okay, you're my business strategist. I have this many hours a day. Tell me what to do. And I mean, the conversation might take a while. Some of my kind of broader conversations about my business are investments of time, but it's so worthwhile because it really can help you to think through and map out a big plan and like a strategy for what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And obviously there's plenty of other tools as well which aren't AI related, but which are time saving ones, which I think are useful. Yeah. So I talked about Pinterest, so like Canva, and using Canva to create your pins. Well, creating the templates of the pins before you go ahead with that, I think is really useful, because what I was doing previously was trying to sort of drag and drop pictures into a Canva post and then either save that picture and then upload that to Instagram or whatever, to Pinterest. But then I discovered there's the whole brand element in Canva. And then I kind of thought, right, what I don't actually do is I've not learned the tool. So I'm thinking, I love tech and I love messing around with different things. But what I wasn't doing was finding the tool I've got and focusing on learning how to use it. But now I've got templates set up. I've got the schedule part of it. So you can spend 2 hours on a Sunday afternoon making pins and then schedule them for 30 days worth ahead. You've got that option. The same with buffer.com is another one for sort of scheduling your Insta posts and your Facebook posts and that kind of thing. It's just a really good way of using that small amount of time, but having a real focus session on and getting something output.
I like that too. Yeah, I'm all for focus sessions and batching. I think what you just mentioned is kind of a version of batching, like sitting down and just kicking out the same sort of content so that you have it You don't have to worry about it like 3 times during the week, right? Are there other tools you use consistently? So you mentioned Canva, obviously AI, and then what was the other one you mentioned about the scheduling?
Buffer was one, which is a bit of a, I think it's like Hootsuite, that type of thing.
Gotcha.
With a social scheduling type.
Yep.
I think a lot of people use Tailwind as well, which is the other big one. I mean, I'm a little bit tight, so I use Buffer because there's a free plan. And you can. I only have two accounts, and you can publish 10 posts at a time. But if I'm fit, so that's like enough for a week for me. But if feeling a bit flush, you can get an extra plan, and you can get unlimited for the month. So it's there's a lot of options there, and it doesn't have to cost a fortune. The other one I was using was Lightroom, and that was one which obviously for photo editing, and I realised that I'd done that for a year because you've got to sign up for the year for Adobe, and realised that actually I wasn't getting any value out of it. It was costing me however much, $9-10 a month, something like that. But I wasn't getting that amount of value out of it compared to what I could do in Canva, what I could do with tweaking the photos on my iPhone. I was using some of the sort of the plugins and effects and that, but not enough to warrant that money. So I decided not to renew it this last year, and I've just I've got a DSLR camera for really nice food shots, which are great. That was a really good investment, and I was pleased about that. That was a second-hand thing I bought for like 70 quid from one of the exchange shops nearby. Nice. It's an old camera, but I was still getting better pictures than I was doing off my iPhone for the those feature shots and that kind of thing on the foodie pictures. They just look a different depth of picture. Really enjoyed them ones. But yeah, the Lightroom didn't need it, so got shut.
I think that's a great tip, and something to like, some people really love Lightroom, but there are other softwares and other things that, quote, everyone tells you should use, but maybe for you it just doesn't make sense and you're not getting the value from it, like you said about Lightroom. So just think through the list of what you're using or what you're supposed to use, and use what works for you. I think there's so much value there. I have so many people who are like, well, I'm told that I'm supposed to use this. Like, no, you don't have to do anything. You can use your iPhone to take your pictures. You don't need artificial lighting. You can use the sun. Like, there are so many ways to make blogging work that is affordable and doable for you.
Absolutely. And I think, for me, it's about it being fun and not being a chore, because it's something, I do it as a hobby. It is a hobby, and I do spend a bit of money on it, but people spend money going to the football, people spend money going out, and that's not what I do. I do messing around with a blog, which is it's a hobby. But I think, like you say, there's so many different people using different blogging for different reasons, and whereas you've got the people who are doing it full time, you do have the other end of the scale where you might get somebody who dips in every couple of months and then does a bit and then comes back out of it. And I think the comparison side of it can be quite dangerous, because you can go on Facebook groups and different people are doing. You've seen all these full-time bloggers doing these posts, and they're posting like 3 times a day on Insta, and it's so easy to compare. And well, I don't do that, and that's what I should be doing to be successful. But I think determining what actually success is for you is an important thing compared to what success is for somebody else. There was one I did see which I thought was a really good quote. Somebody on a Facebook group doing like sourdough additions, like stuff like blueberries and things like that, they put in there, and they were doing a nacho cheese flavor. And, you look at the picture and you think, oh. But the caption on the picture was, sometimes it's fun to remember you've got free will. And that was, and I just thought it was so nice because it just makes you think, actually, there are no rules when it comes to doing bread making and that kind of stuff. Just have fun, and if you've got the ability to do that, do it. Because so what if it burns? So what if it's a bit squidgy in the middle? Well, you've tried it and you know not to do it again. Might be delicious, so have the freedom to experiment. Don't let it tie you down. I think if blogging isn't your main income as well, then that that opens up that freedom even more, because true. I know I don't have to rely on my blog to to feed the family. I mean, we'd be starving if we did, because it wouldn't do anything good for us. But do what you enjoy with it, I think.
Yeah, that's such a great reminder for all of us, whether you're doing it for hobby or job. I think we all need to hear that, because we do fall into that trap of everyone's doing this, or I'm supposed to create a recipe this way, or I'm supposed to run my business this way, but it doesn't always have to be like that. So thank you for that reminder. And then you keep calling it a hobby. Do you want it to be a job, or is it you're just totally fine with it being your hobby?
I think, if I'm honest with myself, I'm mid-40s now. If I can get to maybe my mid-50s and it be good enough for me to retire on, then I'll be well happy with that.
Okay.
But going the way I'm going at it at the minute, I don't think that's happening. It is just a tick.
So you really do just enjoy it, and
I do.
Sounds like a little creative outlet and a tech outlet as someone who's techie. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just somewhere to experiment and to try things with, and it's just it's a good bit of fun.
I think you're the one to learn from, because you're the one that doesn't feel the pressure, right? You don't have like, so many people are like, oh my gosh, I have to make this work. It's not working. I have to make this work. But you don't feel that. So
Billie Jean King once said, "Pressure is a privilege," and if you remember that, then it's all good.
Ooh. Oh gosh, that's good. Okay. So do you deal with any perfectionism? This is another, like, comparison is a common theme in our industry. Also, perfectionism I see a lot. If so, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, it was something I did used to do before. I probably overthought it a little bit when I was distributing blog posts and distributing.
That works.
Creating a blog post,
publishing,
publishing. That's the word I'm looking for. What I was finding was it had to be a certain word count. It had to have specific phrases. If like the Yoast meter didn't show green, and I wasn't happy with it, and I had to rework it until that. And then you read through it, and it's like, that doesn't sound right, and that.
Yeah.
And now it's right. Let's just write the post, publish it, tweak it later, because the bottom line for me is it's never going to hit result 1 of page 1 in an hour, in a week, in a day. It's one of those where I can fix it later, but if it's out there, at least it's easy to link to. It's easy to start promoting it. I think just don't overthink things. That's the learning that I've had probably from this blog the most, and just publish it, and hopefully it's good enough, because you wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't. But you can always improve. Yeah.
And the good thing about blogging is that you can edit anything. You can retake your photos. You can edit any text you write. That's great. You can't do that with a painting or, other things you create. But with blogging, you have that opportunity to redo whatever.
Right. And I think, being able to go back and like you say, edit stuff it's really freeing, because, you can go back and look at some of the stuff that I'd written really, really early on, and like the first 2 or 3 posts on my site, and you just think, like, why have I done that? Or I've done that a really strange way. And the reason that you think that is that's your progress, because that's when you're looking back thinking, well, I didn't know that then, but now I know that now. I didn't back then know how important like H2 headings were, and formatting in that order, and having a table of contents at the beginning. And you go back to a post and you just think it's a list of instructions and a bit of text, and that was it. Post length probably does matter a little bit, but it's more about, well, is it useful? Post, it's all well and good putting a bit of blurb at the top about where you got the recipe from and that kind of thing, but people don't really care about that. What they want to do is people read quick, they scan. It needs to be in a format that's readable and helpful. We keep going back to the helpful content piece, but that's I think that's probably where the algorithm updates have probably done me a favor, because I've been reviewing earlier posts, and because they've been in the system a while, it's kind of it's there, but it obviously wasn't quite right. So it's as they've been crawled again, the changes have been noted, and they've increased in ranking. So I think it's worth going back and looking at your old posts and refreshing them as probably an annual exercise, if not more.
Yeah. No, I love that reframe. It's like, it's so valuable, because you are seeing the progress that you've made. Without going back, you wouldn't see that, right? And you wouldn't have the frame of reference to say, oh my gosh, I've actually improved so much in my writing and my structuring and my photographing, whatever. So it probably is a good exercise for us all to do regularly.
Yeah, I think so. And I think not just on the blog as well. I think looking at your social accounts and your
Yep.
newsletters and that kind of thing too. Like this year, I really tried to do a bit more putting my face on the camera with my Insta posts. Like previously, it was pictures of food on a carousel, swipe, swipe, swipe. And I thought I need to probably do a few more reels and, let people, if they care, see the face behind who's making it. I've got a couple of pictures, but there was nothing much. But, so that was it's quite daunting doing that, but it's also quite freeing as well once you kind of get used to it and you just get used to talking on camera. It's a bit more, at first I felt a bit weird, stood in the kitchen talking to my phone. I could only do it when no one was in the house.
Yeah.
It's that sort of thing. Whereas now it's like, I'm just doing a video. I'm just won't be long. My wife, I was eating some peanuts or something the other night, and it was one from one of the barbecue people, and I was like, "Oh, will you just film me eating some peanuts?" So
she was like, "What?"
Like, exactly, yeah. But I'll use it at some point. I thought it'll be useful. So you've got all these little clips of video on your phone. I mean, again, it goes back to said it before about the notes app, like some of the videos as well. You see, and you think, "Why have I done that?" But especially after a glass of wine or two, it's just like that'll be really useful at some point. But then you just don't. Yeah, you look back later and you think. Sure
at first it feels weird, but then I used to be really weird about filming when my family was around. Be like, can you guys leave the room? But now whatever, I just keep on, and they look at me like, what are you talking about? But we're all used to it now. It does become more natural over time, but it does feel a little odd at first, talking to yourself, talking to a camera.
But I think it's nice because I think on my Dad What Cooks blog as well, going forward with that, I've now got some video which is on my Insta, which I can use on the blog post. So when it's relevant for the recipe, for example, I never had sort of doing a video before. I thought, what's the point in that? It just seemed extra effort. Whereas I've now got content that I can repurpose and I can mix it up a little bit. And I think that's the other thing with that as well, like repurposing content and using different types. Like I was really focused at my blog should be dadwhatcooks.com should be just recipes. And then as I sort of thought about it more and interacted with people that were commenting on my Insta posts, I realized actually it's not just recipes, it's also a blog. It's, I want to have helpful information. So how to chop an onion properly, how to season your barbecue grill, these different things that I think are useful tips that would be seen as useful by my audience that would hope to visit. It just little things like that. It's not just one format, and I think that again is something that's changed over time. So sort of the more later posts, I'll find probably not as many recipes and more blog how-tos and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you have to think about the broader perspective, right? What advice would you give to someone right now who is feeling overwhelmed by everything that's going on, the changes with AI and the algorithms, and fill in the blank with whatever, the chaos in the world, like all of it is a lot. So do you have encouragement or advice for those people?
Yeah, everybody's got their own unique selling point. Everybody's got something. They might not realize it, but people come to your blog for a reason. And I think you can offer what nobody else can because it's your blog and you do the best of what you do. You do you is the phrase, isn't it? I think if it's the right content for the right people, and you're true to yourself with creating it and doing that, then you'll be fine. I think look at where you started your blog. Look at your first 2 or 3 blog posts and see how they look compared to what you're producing now. I think that's really important. I think understanding that there are no shortcuts is really key, because if you've put the hard work in it so far, don't think that AI and text generation and all that kind of stuff is going to make it easy. It's just going to give you a speedier way to get to the next step. But you've still got to review it. You've still got to put your spin on it. It's still your content and your blog that you're producing. So that's really key, because if you, and I go back to saying about being true to yourself, if you're not, that will come across in your blog as well. And when you're reading back and updating your posts that you do today, next year, you'll think, why have I written that? Because you'll have made these mistakes, or that post won't done well, and there'll be some reason why you want to change it. And I think, don't spread yourself too thin as well as the other thing. It's try and do what you can do to its best, rather than think, well, I'll do a little bit on that, and I'll do a few Insta posts, and I'll do this is why I dropped TikTok and Threads, because it was just, there was too many different things going on, and I was really struggling, thinking about, I need to update that this week because I've not done one on there for ages. And then so I thought, right, blog, Instagram, Facebook, I suppose, as well, but only because it auto posts.
Right.
But yeah, it's kind of just trying not to do too much. Don't get overwhelmed. Just think, look where you are now compared to where you were 12 months ago, but don't live in the past. Don't, look at what you want to do and what do you want to achieve as well. As we mentioned before, I'm quite comfortable in knowing that it's probably not going to make me a fortune, this blog, at all. If it pays for its hosting, I'd be really happy.
You never know. Yeah.
But people say that, yeah, absolutely. And you don't ever know. You might have that one post that blows up and does wonders
inspires
for you.
To create a million more that blow up.
Exactly.
You never know.
Exactly. And if that happens, then I'll embrace it. But I'm keeping my reality head on at the moment with that, I think. But talk to other people, join the groups, chat to other people, and see what they do. You don't have to do it, and you don't have to do what anyone says, really. When it comes to your blog, you decide what's best, but be open to ideas as well. That's the other thing.
I love it. Oh my gosh, so much great advice there. And we kind of glossed over your limited time. Do you have any advice about that for the kind of person I was talking about earlier who does have time, but they just don't utilize it? Do you have specific words for them?
I think work as though you do have limited time. Set a timer, use your phone or a stopwatch or whatever, just to say, right, I'm going to focus on 30 minutes now, creating some Canva templates, and just start doing it. But actually start that. Don't think, I've got all these other things to do. Prioritize your list. Get your notes app open and put stuff in there. Come up with ideas. Have a brainstorming session. Send some posts to friends and say, right, give me some ideas about this. Put a post into your AI chat and say, how can I improve this? Give me 5 ideas to improve it. Give me 5 ways to reform this content into other platforms. How can I make some Instagram posts from this blog post? That kind of thing. There's a multitude of options about getting ideas. This is probably half my issue with things, is that I've got all these ideas going on, and
I know.
It's getting them to land, and then actually sitting down and starting, because that's the other thing. It's, if you don't sit and start, then they're all just ideas and they're not going out there.
That's true.
I should probably listen to myself a little bit when I watch this back and
listen to this back and take all your advice. Yeah. I was just going to say, you're such an idea guy. Every question I ask you just rattle off so many great thoughts. I feel like you should be a coach or something. I'm like, should I start posing my challenges to you right now, Martin, and have you solve all my issues?
Give them a go.
Oh, I mean, seriously, so much great value and so many gems here. Thank you for all of this. And thanks for sharing your journey with us. And every creator has such a unique journey and business. And it's always fun to learn, like, oh, you have a full-time job and you carry this hobby and you like it as a hobby and all the things you do to make it work. So just so valuable. Thanks for all of this.
You're welcome. That's been nice to speak to you.
Yeah, such a nice conversation. We will put together a show notes page for you. If anyone wants to go peek at those, we'll put everything we talked about today, including the transcript. I love transcripts for episodes like this, by the way, because there are so many gems being thrown around. In a transcript, you can actually see, or you can run it through ChatGPT and say, pull out the gems that you think I would use. I love doing that. So you can find those at eblogtalk.com/dadwhatcooks. And tell everyone again where they can find you, Martin.
Absolutely. So, dadwhatcooks.com is my main blog. I'm on @dadwhatcooks on Instagram, and I'd probably give a cheeky plug to the WordPress plugin that I did as well, which is at tidyposts.com. So that's just yeah, like I say, it's a free download at WordPress.org as well if you want to get it from there. But yeah, that's me for now, I think.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thanks again for being here. And thank you so much for listening, food bloggers. I will see you next time.